Hello, everybody. I am going to be talking to you today about a topic that I think should be talked about. I know that it is taboo, but I think that even in topics that some people think are taboo, the only way you're going to know to be weary, to be awake and aware of what's going on is to know what to look for, to have knowledge. Knowledge is power. And I truly believe that just because you may know information about this particular topic, and the topic is going to be about skinwalkers, that you're going to go out and look for trouble, or that you're going to attract them to you, because I don't attract them to me. I am talking to you about them so that you can have some information, so that you can kind of, if you're going out in any location where there's a possibility where they might be, which could be anywhere. It doesn't have to be on, New Mexico or in Colorado or Utah. It can be, or Nevada. It can be anywhere, because I think that the term skinwalker has been so twisted in our culture that I think that the term itself kind of is lost in what I call lore. I'm not saying that they're not dangerous. Of course they are, but I think that a lot of Hollywood has taken in the skinwalker name because it's like all scary and creepy, and people kind of buy into the fictitious aspects of what Hollywood has basically stated what skinwalkers are. And the reason why I think it's important also to talk about this is because once it's kind of out there, then you can kind of just let it alone. And I truly believe that if you go out into the paranormal, which Michael and I do, that I don't look for trouble, I look for answers. I look for knowledge. I'm not asking for a problem to come our way. I'm not attracting a problem to come our way. What I want is to understand the paranormal. And this is very much a part of the paranormal. Now, I know that the Navajos, which they are the ones who are, this is very much a taboo topic. And I think rightly so. I think for them, it's very real. It's a reality that they live with. Because no matter what, in every culture, there's always going to be a dark shaman or a dark witch. And, if you talk about titles, skinwalker, shapeshifter, dark shaman, dark witch, sorcerer, sorceress, and there's curandera, which, that could be a dark witch, but, that could also be a healer. So I think we need to understand that there's kind of, there isn't just like a skinwalker and it's just like one thing. There's different aspects to that term that can be included into it. Just like I don't believe in just good and evil. There's different aspects of good and different aspects of evil, which I think is important to understand. So I think that the one thing is that let's look first in the definition of what a skinwalker is. So a skinwalker is a harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess or disguise themselves as an animal. The term is never used for a healer. So in the Hopi and the Apache and other different tribes have their version of what a skinwalker is, but mostly this term has come from the Navajos. And I think that there's also a problem too, because in Utah, there's Skinwalker Ranch, which Michael and I went to, and it's termed that. And I often wonder why, because that whole ranch, the land out in the area where Skinwalker Ranch is, not just the ranch itself, but outside of that has paranormal activity happening. The paranormal has to do with everything. It's not just Skinwalker. And I think even in the books that were written about Skinwalker Ranch or the TV series that came out, that they were dealing with UFOs, they were dealing with strange sounds. They were dealing with digging in the ground. If they dug in the ground, some strange negative thing would happen to whoever was digging in the ground. It just seemed like there's a lot of unusual stuff happening, orbs, all that good stuff, or bad stuff, I should say. So I don't necessarily want you to think about skinwalkers in that regard, because let's just look at what a skinwalker is in my opinion, what they are. And this is just basically my opinion. And so what I'm going to do is I did an article in Paranormal Underground, and let's see here. And I kind of wrote about the differences in what I think encompasses what a skinwalker is. And here it's the Paranormal Underground issue, volume 10, issue 10, October 2017. And then this is the long article, and this is the article that I did for it. But in this one specific part of the article, I have here what is a skinwalker. So I'm going to read to you what I wrote, because I think it's easier just to read it than to kind of take pieces from this. So I said, the skinwalker is obviously the most intrusive symbol in cult history. It has always been a mysterious, confusing figure in folklore or movies, because the interpretation or definition regarding a skinwalker always seems to be a bit muddy. And to me, it is, because there's different parts to what anything is. There's people who are healers, but there are healers who can actually shapeshift. Not all healers shapeshift. There's other healers who are really connected to elementals, and they don't necessarily bring in the shape-shifting aspect. They don't need to. So there's some people who are healers who couldn't just do it all. But there's different, just like there's different types of people, there's different types of who I believe encompasses that term skinwalker. My view is that a dark witch is behind the scenes in some form or fashion, controlling a compromised or deceived soul. Once the dark witch gains the upper hand, they can place their captive in the forefront of hostilities, hence creating the skinwalker. Skinwalkers who are dark are directed and controlled by a menacing force that uses them for personal vendettas and feuds. There is a contract that binds them together. It's a distinctive and detailed contract kept in the bowels of the dark and decrepit shadows that waits for the ill-fated signature in blood so that it can eternally envelop a soul and control it. So as you can see, I don't think that, well, let's look at it this way. How does somebody become a skinwalker? Okay, are you born into a family of skinwalkers? Are you somebody who is just dark in nature and decided one day, oh, I'm going to be a skinwalker, I'm going to be a dark magician, a dark whatever, okay? Or are you someone that just by happen chance, because you want to study the medicine way, you happen to be working with someone who's a bit dark? And the one thing that I learned through the different witches that I experienced is that they're very deceitful. So you could think that you're studying with somebody, and before you know it, you can get yourself involved in ceremonies in the dark arts that you never intended to be a part of. So I don't always think that people who are skinwalkers are doing it on their own. I think that they have a benefactor. They have someone who is in control, who's actually taking them out or sending them out and having them do their dirty deeds for them. Because another thing that I learned about people who are into the dark arts is that they're not always wanting to do the hard work. They want someone else to do it for them. So in order for someone to have a benefactor, they have to go out there and earn the knowledge. They have to earn any type of ceremony that's being done, any type of knowledge that's being passed on, they have to earn it. And how they earn it is by doing creepy, bad stuff. And so I think it's kind of like a different version of Frankenstein. There's the person who is Dr. Frankenstein, who's creating the actual monster. And then that monster is going out unintentionally in that story, but intentionally in this regard, doing mayhem. And so I think that for the unfortunate soul who thinks that they're going to gain knowledge in the dark arts, there's always a price to pay. The Skinwalker is in some ways symbolic of their own delusional respite. It's in their nature to think that someday they can walk away from their circumstances by acquiescing to another's will. The darkness doesn't come without consequences, so once a person plays with fire, they not only become a part of their fervor and that intensifies its malevolence, but they eventually get burned by it as well. I think there are trapped souls like the birds and large dog, and the large dog is an experience I had with one of the witches in my past video on witches, where I experienced a black dog that unfortunately he needed my help and I wasn't able to help him. So if you want to go back to the video that I did previously on witches that are prisoners of black magic, I think there are dark witches who have their own agendas and vendettas, thus becoming physically twisted, distorted, and perverted. They become what they put out, and it eventually shows in their appearance. So, you know, I truly believe that. I think that we have to understand that in the medicine way, you have to understand the dark as well as the light. You have to, it doesn't mean you have to, that you're going to like the dark, but you have to respect it. And that's one thing that Thunderbow made very clear to me. He always told me, he said, you know, you're going to come across stuff that you're not going to like. You're going to come across stuff that is scary. You're going to come across people who don't have your best interest at heart, that doesn't have humanity's best interest at heart. But you have to understand who they are to understand how to not necessarily fight against them, but to protect people from them and protect yourself from them. And so one thing that Thunderbow did is he made me realize that you have to understand how these beings and these people work in order to stay away from them. And I think also because knowledge is power, like I said before, you have to understand that they will understand and know that you know a little something about who they are. And I think that when people understand who these things are, they can become aware of a situation and they can actually get themselves out of harm's way. Now, the one thing that is important to understand is that obviously there's different aspects to what a skinwalker can do. Now, the term skinwalker came about because these dark witches, if you want to call it, just say dark witch, actually will kill the animal that they actually want to possess or become. And then they wear the skin on them and they do ceremony. And then they actually gain the attributes of whatever animal it is that they are wanting to possess. And I think something important here too, that I haven't seen too much that people have talked about, is that whatever animal that they kill, they absorb its life source. And I think that's another aspect, another way of how they actually gain their abilities. And then just think about it, because it's not just one skin. They're going to go out there and they're going to be killing different animals for different purposes and reasons. So some ceremonies require that. Obviously, we know this because of not just with the how can I put it? With many of the different cultures that are out there that have talked about the dark arts, there's always a ceremony where there has to be some kind of sacrifice. And so there's always going to be a sacrifice whenever somebody is practicing the dark arts, because they believe that the sacrifice is necessary. When you understand the medicine way, you understand that there doesn't need to be any sacrificing whatsoever to gain the ability to heal and to gain abilities to do whatever it is to heal people and help out humanity. So that's, I think, a falsity that there has to be a sacrifice. I think that's baloney, but they're going to do it. And so that's why they wear the skin of whatever animal that they are actually trying to turn into. And there's times when they can really do amazing things, where they can really jump high, where they can disappear, where you'll see actually feet, and then you'll eventually see little paw marks going off somewhere, because they kind of turn into whatever the animal is, if it's a coyote, if it's a wolf. Even, owls, eagles, whatever. I think that when you're practicing the dark arts, there's nothing off limits, and that even includes people. And I'm not saying that they were people, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that part of the sacrifice, it has to do with every aspect of life, because everything that these beings, these people come across, everybody's in danger. So it's not just animals, it's humans, it's everybody. And I think the one thing that's important to understand is that I believe the families who deal with members of their family who are dark magicians, dark witches, that they counter that, because there's always somebody in the family who's practicing the medicine way, the medicine that helps people, the medicine of light and good. So I think that the Native Americans have gotten to the point to where they can see what something is, but they have learned how to deal with it. And I don't think that it's necessarily good to basically not talk about something because you're afraid that you're going to attract it to you. Because the one thing that I've always believed about the paranormal, or about anything that's negative and dark, is that if you know that you have source in you, and you know that you have good in you, you don't have to worry about something like that coming at you. Because I know that I have Sasquatch friends. I know Tulak the dog man. I know that I have elementals and I have guardians that will protect me. And I know it without a shadow of a doubt. So you have to not just believe, but know that you're protected. But also you have to understand that you can't just go out looking for trouble. I think that's really important. And I think that one thing that I want to talk about is there's kind of like people have an idea of what they think a skinwalker is. And a skinwalker is not a werewolf. A werewolf is more of a cryptid. And a skinwalker isn't dogman, because dogman is a cryptid. A werewolf in some instances is maybe a hybrid. Maybe it's half man, half wolf. Maybe there's some kind of ceremony that took place to create a werewolf. Maybe a werewolf is actually its own being, its own entity onto itself. Maybe it is actually born a werewolf. Who knows? I'm not an expert with werewolves. But a skinwalker isn't a dog man, and a skinwalker is not a werewolf. So I think that's really important. So I think I wanted to, okay, I have here, and this is the issue of Paranormal Underground. This is the September 2017 issue. And the article that I wrote is Dogman versus Werewolf. Okay. So what I have here is I said, however, I must interject here that I think there are confused and muddy beliefs about the differences, what the differences are between a werewolf and a dog man. And also, I'll include into this group a menacing foe called a skinwalker. Here's my interpretation of who I think they are. A werewolf is a half man, half beast that's becoming a hybrid. The dogman is a cryptid from birth, and a skinwalker is a dark shaman impersonating and taking on the shape of animals besides casting spells and curses. I know I felt the shape of a werewolf running up behind me the night I hightailed it back to my family's camp. That's another story that I had talked about where I was doing a vision quest up in the mountains behind where I was camped out in Taos, New Mexico. And I was woken up in a sleep, not a deep sleep, because I had been, I think it was like my third night up in the mountains. And all of a sudden I just heard a voice say, get up and get out and run. And so when the voice told me to run like the second or third time, I just booked it out of my tent and I ran, and I had something chasing me, and it was from pretty far away when I first started running. But as I was when I could see the camp in the distance, and I was running for it, and I was jumping over sagebrush and all this rocks and all this stuff in the dead of night. Thank God it was a full moon. But this thing was catching up to me like you couldn't imagine. It's the speed of this thing was just crazy. And I had at first thought that it might have been a werewolf, or it might have been a dog, a dog man. But I don't think that's what it was. I think it was a skinwalker. And whatever this was, it had an amazing ability to run. I was running as fast as I can, and I'm not very tall. I was 5'3". I think I'm a little shorter now. But I was running as fast as I possibly could, and I was on all adrenaline. I mean, I was just scared because I could hear this thing breathing and growling, you know, probably 20 to 30 feet behind me. By the time I got to the camp, I realized that that this thing kind of backed off, that it wasn't going to go into the camp. The horses could smell it, and I could smell it too. It didn't smell very good. I heard it growl. And at one point, I believe the growl was like 5 feet away from me. And it wasn't my imagination. I mean, I actually felt the breath as I was running on the back of my hair, on my head. And so when I was running into camp and the horses were making a noise, they were just like twitterpated over this creature. The dogs were barking, and then I woke up the whole camp. Thank God I did. I didn't want to be dealing with that by myself. But I mean, I ran from where I actually was camped out, which is a long, long, long ways away. So that thing was chasing me for a long time. It could have caught up to me at any time. It could have taken me out at any time. But I think it was a skinwalker just playing with me. And that's what they do. And I think that was probably when I realized it was a skinwalker, I just realized that they're not always out to just do people in. Sometimes they just want to scare the crap out of you, like that one did with me. And thank God Thunderbow was there at the camp, because I don't think this thing wanted to deal with Thunderbow, because nobody messed with Thunderbow. So it's not always just, it can be fun and games with them there, and they are the tricksters as well. Skinwalkers have that, they take on a weird type of mentality where they'll play with humans. They'll scare them. They'll do things that just are cruel and aren't something that most people would do. And so that's one thing to understand, is that their mentality is very different. And I think when you're dealing with darkness on the level that they are dealing with darkness, that it changes your mentality. And that's what I was saying earlier, that what I read here was that it changes, they twist their mind frame, it twists how they view life. And that's where they get really scary. And that's the really scary part, is because you're not dealing with somebody sane. So, it can turn them into a psychopath. So if it's a human that's dealing with the dark arts, that maybe is already a little dark themselves, it can change them into a psychopath beyond belief. And you can't always tell who they are. And just remember that appearances can be very deceitful, because you can come across one that looks just like everybody else and is very polite and very nice. And behind closed doors, the dark arts is what they're doing. And that's just a part of someone who is, you know, a dark shaman, medicine man, dark, anything that's dealing with the dark arts that just is not willing to bring out the best in humanity and to heal humanity and to find answers for humanity. Basically, what the dark arts is really about is it's really doing humanity in. It's and when you're dealing with that kind of energy, it's not necessarily like in Hollywood, where Hollywood does a lot of special effects. There's a lot of unusual stuff that happens with this group. This group can do crazy, unusual stuff, and the paranormal does kind of follow it along, which means, you know, I've experienced situations where wind came out of nowhere, but only in one specific area. And it was an area that I was really sensing something terrifying was there. And I'm not talking about Sasquatch, because Sasquatch, they're my friend. And even though they can control the wind, this is something that just kind of, you could just tell that it was something that was dark. There's just a signature that these things have that just lets you know deep down in your gut, in your soul, that they're dark. And that's something that Hollywood can't bring about. You can get scared to death by watching a scary movie, but when you're actually feeling that emotion in the moment of this thing or whatever it is in front of you that is kind of coming at you, you have to kind of, you know, there's two things you do: you stand your ground or you run. And most of the time, obviously, I've ran, because I just don't want to deal with these things. And I don't come across them because I go look for them. It's just every once in a while in my medicine days when I was studying the different medicine people and I was on my path, I came across a couple of these things and I didn't enjoy it at all. But one thing that I have learned is, if I understand that I have source in me, and if I understand that that I am a medicine woman, then I'm going to have to sometimes stand my ground. And but I would suggest to anybody who's dealing with these things just to leave, just to go. With me, myself, when if I ever choose to stand my ground, I'll know what to do. But if you don't know what to do and you're not sure who these things are, and you're not sure about the circumstances around what you're looking at, then you just walk away. And there's no harm in that at all. It's not like, the one thing I want to make really clear, and this is not an easy topic for me to talk about, because there's my brain's going in so many different directions here. It's not like ghost hunting. It's not like going into a cemetery and seeing a ghost or seeing a tall, dark figure. It's not like going into a haunted house. It's not like videotaping a ghost. When you come across somebody who's like this, it's as close as to a demon in a human form that you're going to come across, because the darkness has varying degrees. There's what I call the demon, which you definitely will know if you are in the presence of something horrific like that. There's the dregs, and there's varying degrees of dregs, and the dregs are the ones who are the minions of the demons, and they also have their own agendas. And then you have the shadow people. You know, you've got them, and they have their own agenda, and who knows where they come from. they probably, have come in dimensionally. And that's what I think with the shadow people. I think you also have the black-eyed children who are now on the forefront of, because of David Weatherly's really good book, Black-Eyed Children. And you've got them, you've got the Slender Man, that came about. How did that come about? Did that come about because of mass, intention? Who knows? But there's different varying degrees of darkness. And then you have the jinn. And the jinn, from what I understand, are not anything like demons. They're different. Now I know in the Middle East they're considered demons, but with the jinn that I that communicated with me from Skinwalker Ranch, he was saying that they're different. They don't really care if you think they're demons. They don't have the best interest of humans at heart. But they're not, he said, they're not. Antioch was his name, and he said that they are different than demons. They don't have the same agenda as demons. But Skinwalker is walking that fine line of what any of these dark things are. So they're not something to play with. They're not something to go out there and to seek. I have something else here that I wrote. I said, I think the dark magic that I experienced that particular night when I had this thing running at me, and that's what I was just telling you about the vision quest that I had done. Whoever this was probably had been watching me throughout the day while I was at my most vulnerable. Interestingly enough, the smell of whatever it was has stayed with me to this day. And that's true. I have not been able to forget the smell of this thing. It was really bad. I will never forget those gut-wrenching growls or advancing footsteps that rapidly closed in on me. I think I fell victim to a dark shamanic magic, up close and personal. And I think that that when you're dealing with something like that, it changes you forever, because it's not, when you go to a movie, that if you're going to go watch a scary movie, that you can leave the theater and you're going to walk away from that scary movie. You're not going to walk home. I mean, you're not going to go home, walk into your home and walk into a scary movie. For most people. I mean, some people might live in haunted houses or have other experiences with something scary, but for the most part, most people go see a scary movie. They drive home, they walk in their home, and then they close the door and they forget the scary movie. And that's not what happens when you deal with something like this, because when you've experienced something this dark and this scary and horrific, it kind of alters how innocent your awareness is. And by that I mean knowledge is power and ignorance is bliss. And so a lot of people walk around life ignorant and they don't know that these things exist, and that's good. And they may never see them. Somebody like me, I didn't go looking for this, but I did experience these things. And the one thing that I realized is that, well, life isn't as safe as I used to think it was. And that's what happens when you experience darkness to that degree, is that your safety net comes a little closer in, because there's more for you to look around and see that's there. And when you are experiencing the paranormal on a consistent basis, and I have ever since I was a child, you just learn that there's always something out there. There's something there that you just have to be aware of. And I think that with Skinwalkers, you just have to understand that they're always going to have humanity's ill will at heart. They will always have some agenda against humanity, because that's basically what the dark arts is really about. It's always against the light. It's against what represents the light. And most people have light in them because we're all part of source anyways. So the important thing here is I wanted to share this with you. Since the light and dark aspects of humans and nature are on opposite sides of the same coin, I have made sure to know that I know both sides and respect my boundaries. It comes down to this. In order to appreciate the light, we must understand the dark. And I think understand it. I don't think that you have to necessarily, you have to have a healthy, and I don't want to necessarily say respect, but you have to understand what it is to be able to fight it. And at any given time, you know, there's a medicine man out there that's having to heal somebody who's been cursed, and even curses. There's always a cure for every curse. And that's just something that is a fact. It doesn't matter what ill will somebody can do to you, if you believe in curses or if you don't believe in curses. But I just know without a shadow of a doubt that for every curse, there's a cure. And so with darkness, it doesn't want you to believe that there's an answer or a solution. It wants you to think that there's no hope, that you're basically, it wants you in a victim mentality is basically what it wants you. And I think that with skinwalkers, when they do ceremony, that there's different types of ceremonies that they do. I think that there are skinwalkers that are do ceremony for youth to make themselves look young. I think that is that type of mentality is very narcissistic. So they have to be able to make sure that they keep up a youthful appearance. I think that they can impersonate somebody extremely old, even though they know that their, you know, their outer appearance is to other people is a normal human being. They can turn into anything that they want to turn into. But there's ceremonies that they do specifically for different things that they want. And I think that when you experience a skinwalker, you have to understand you're experiencing somebody who's just twisted and messed up in the constant ceremony that they do. I think that prayer, and I think there's that meditation, and I think that the ceremony done for the best intention of humanity is always going to have a beneficial outcome for anybody who's doing it. I truly believe that anybody who does ceremony who's constantly dealing in the dark, that they will end up paying the price in the end. There's no escaping giving up your soul for something dark, because the darkness is just basically, that's just what it is. It's just something that consumes itself. And once it consumes itself, it's like a black hole. It's just, it's continual. Anybody who thinks that they can practice the dark arts and go do all this different stuff and then go out on their own and be this powerful sorcerer or dark witch or whatever, it eventually, the darkness comes calling. It always does. So it's just a matter of time when it does. So to me, skinwalkers are obviously dark witches, but how they come across to people can be many different things. An old woman, an old man, a young woman, a young man. It can come across something very scary looking, something that doesn't look human. They can have attributes to them that that go beyond anything a human can do, but they are always paying a price for that. There's always a price to pay for anything like that, and I think that's really important to know. I think that what I wanted to end with is a wonderful quote by George Bernard Shaw. And I think this kind of says it all as far as what I believe as human beings. I think we're always in constant battle within ourselves as far as the dark and the light. And he says, a Native American elder once described his own inner struggles in this manner. Inside of me, there are two dogs. One of the dogs is mean and evil. The other dog is good. The mean dog fights the good dog all the time. When asked which dog wins, he reflected for a moment and replied, the one I feed the most. So I think being a paranormal researcher, I don't go looking for trouble, I go looking for answers. And I think that I have to understand what the darkness is to be able to know how far to go into a certain direction and when I have to kind of back up. And then I think I have to know when to stand my ground, and I have to know what it is that I'm facing. And I think that knowledge is power. And I think that if you don't talk about something, that which cannot be named, or however you want to say it, that you perpetuate it's the myth of it, or you perpetuate its ability to hide in plain sight. Because even though these things are there and people know they're there and they're never talked about, that these things, these people, they don't have to hide. And I think that as humanity strives for the light, that we have to just let these things know, let these beings know that we're not going to allow them to hide anymore. We come together as a people, as a group of people, and we know to stand our ground, and we know we stand together. And that's really what I wanted to say, is that there's times to understand when you got to back away, and there's times to know when you have to stand your ground. And to stand your ground, you have to understand what it is that you're facing. So with that being said, I hope that I gave you a little bit more clarification on what a Skinwalker is. And this is just my personal opinion on what they are. I think that there's different versions of who they are. It's not just Skinwalker here, where it's kind of a Hollywood style. I think that one of the first people that I actually met that I believe had some form of ability like a Skinwalker was the witch that I had talked about in my last video, the one that came from Mexico, who happened to be causing a lot of problems for different people at the Pueblo. So at the Taos Pueblo. So she was a beautiful young woman, but she was as crazy as heck. And you know, she's probably was the first one. And then the Skinwalker that chased me when I was doing my vision quest, who knows who that was? But I know they were watching me. They can be anybody, any place, anywhere. So what you just have to do is just understand that they're there, and don't go seek them out, and just take care of your own self, and just make sure that you're in a good place within yourself, so that at any time, if you do face the darkness, you can stand your ground, and you can stand your ground with knowing that you are protected. And just bring in your spirit guides, bring in all those beings that help you out, and you're going to do fine. So with that, I thank you for listening to me. I hope I made sense. It's not the easiest topic to discuss, but I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, any stories you want to share, feel free to email Michael and me at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com, and dimensional walking is all one word. You can leave a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and if you want, just share this with some of your friends if you want. So thank you, and I'll look forward to seeing you again on our next video. So take care, God bless, and thank you for watching.